The entire boardroom laughed when Marcus Reed walked in carrying a delivery box. Not because the box was heavy. Not because he was late. They laughed because they believed a man like him had no place standing among them. A room full of executives in expensive suits stared at the tired delivery driver in his old uniform as if he had accidentally entered the wrong building. The CEO leaned back in his chair and smiled. "Marcus, do you even understand what this meeting is about?" Marcus looked around quietly. The same people who had ignored him for 8 years were now asking him a question. He lowered his eyes. "I think I do." A few executives laughed. The company's chief engineer shook his head. "This is exactly the problem. We need professionals, not drivers." Those words hit harder than Marcus expected. Because for 8 years, he had delivered packages to this company. He knew every hallway, every warehouse door, every machine, every employee who stayed late, every problem nobody wanted to talk about. But nobody ever asked him what he saw. Nobody ever cared. The CEO opened a folder. "Marcus, you are being terminated effective immediately." The room went silent. Marcus slowly looked up. "Terminated?" The CEO nodded. "Your position is no longer needed." A small smile appeared on Marcus's face. Not because he was happy, because he finally understood. They weren't firing him because he was useless. They were firing him because they never realized how useful he was. The CEO continued. "You are a delivery driver. You deliver boxes. That's all." Marcus picked up his old company badge from the table. He stared at it for a moment. Then he placed it down. "No, sir." Everyone looked surprised. Marcus took a breath. "I delivered boxes." A pause. "But I also watched what was inside those walls." The CEO frowned. "What does that mean?" Marcus looked directly at him. "It means your company has a problem." The room laughed again, this time louder. The chief engineer smiled. "Marcus, people with degrees are working on that problem." Marcus nodded. "I know." "Then maybe you should trust them." Marcus looked at the giant glass windows behind the executives. Outside, hundreds of workers moved through the factory. Workers who never entered rooms like this. Workers who saw things executives never noticed. "I did trust them," Marcus said. "That's why I waited." The CEO stood up. Waited for what? Marcus grabbed his jacket. For someone to finally listen. Then he walked out. And nobody stopped him. Because nobody believed the delivery driver had anything important to say. 3 days later, the company almost collapsed. And suddenly, everyone remembered Marcus Reed. The company was called Titan Logistics. A billion-dollar transportation corporation that handled medical supplies, electronics, and emergency equipment across the country. For years, Titan Logistics had been considered unstoppable. Their system was faster than competitors. Their warehouses were more advanced. Their delivery network was praised by investors. But behind the success was a hidden problem. A problem Marcus had noticed months before. The company's new automated sorting system was failing. Not completely. Not enough for executives to panic. But enough to create small delays. Small delays that became bigger every week. Packages were arriving late. Inventory numbers were slightly wrong. Machines were overheating. And nobody knew why. The engineers blamed software. The managers blamed employees. Executives blamed everyone except themselves. But Marcus saw something different. Because every night, when he delivered the final packages, he walked past the machines. He heard them. He watched them. He noticed patterns. The same machine would stop every Thursday night. The same conveyor belt would slow down every morning. The same section of the warehouse would become unusually hot. Nobody noticed. Because nobody was looking. Except Marcus. Before losing his job, he had spent months writing everything down. Not in a fancy computer system. Not with expensive software. In a small notebook. A notebook his father gave him years ago. His father had been a mechanic. A man who always told him, smart people don't just look at what something does. They ask why it does it. Marcus never forgot that. But after he was fired, he put the notebook away. He thought maybe he was wrong. Maybe the engineers knew better. Until the emergency happened. A shipment worth hundreds of millions of dollars disappeared. Not stolen. Not lost. The system itself created a false location. The company's tracking software said the shipment was in Warehouse A. But the trucks leaving Warehouse A were empty. The real shipment was somewhere else. And nobody could find it. Investors panicked. Customers threatened lawsuits. News cameras arrived outside the headquarters. The CEO who once laughed at Marcus now stood in a crisis room surrounded by engineers. Fix it. The chief engineer looked nervous. We're trying. How long? The engineer hesitated. We don't know. That was the moment the CEO realized something terrifying. The smartest people in the room had no answer. Then one young employee spoke quietly. Sir. Everyone turned. What? The employee swallowed. There is someone who might know. The CEO stared. Who? The employee looked uncomfortable. Marcus Reed. The room went silent. The CEO's face changed. Because he remembered the final thing Marcus said. I waited for someone to finally listen. The CEO immediately sent someone to find him. But Marcus wasn't waiting. He was working at a small repair shop outside town, fixing old machines, the same way his father taught him. When the company executives arrived, Marcus looked up. He wasn't angry. He wasn't proud. He just looked tired. The CEO stepped forward. Marcus. Marcus continued repairing the machine. Yes. We need your help. For the first time, the CEO sounded different. No arrogance. No disrespect. Just desperation. Marcus wiped his hands. Why? The CEO looked uncomfortable. Because you were right. A long silence followed. Those words were something Marcus never expected to hear. The CEO continued. The system is failing. Marcus looked at him. I know. The engineer behind the CEO looked offended. You know? Marcus nodded. I knew before you installed the final update. The engineer stepped forward. How? Marcus pointed at the machine he was repairing. Because machines talk. Everyone looked confused. Marcus smiled slightly. Not with words. He opened his old notebook. Pages filled with dates, times, numbers, observations. The sorting machines were designed for a different climate. The engineer shook his head. That's impossible. Marcus turned the notebook around. Every Thursday night, the temperature changes because your cooling system switches cycles. He pointed. When the temperature drops, one sensor gives a false reading. The engineer looked closer. Marcus continued. The system doesn't know the sensor is wrong, so it keeps sending packages to the wrong location. The engineer froze. Because he realized something. Marcus was right. The problem wasn't software. It wasn't employees. It was a tiny sensor nobody thought mattered. A cheap part causing $1 billion disaster. The CEO whispered. How did you figure this out? Marcus closed the notebook. The CEO looked confused. You were delivering packages. Marcus nodded. Yes. A pause. But I was also paying attention. The company had 2 days before losing its biggest contracts. Marcus returned. But this time, nobody called him a driver. They called him the person who could save them. For the next 48 hours, Marcus worked beside engineers who once ignored him. He showed them things they never saw. Not because he had more education, but because he had experience. The repair was almost complete. Then the final test failed. The system crashed again. Everyone panicked. The engineer checked the computer. Something else is wrong. Marcus walked toward the machines. He listened. He touched the side panel. Then he looked at everyone. The vibration changed. The engineers stared. What? Marcus opened the panel. Inside was a damaged cable. A tiny crack. Almost invisible. The engineer shook his head. That wouldn't cause this much damage. Marcus looked at him. Maybe not by itself. He pointed at the system. But combined with the sensor issue, it creates a chain reaction. The room went quiet. Because once again, the delivery driver was right. 2 days later, Titan Logistics held a public announcement. Investors, employees, media, everyone watched. The CEO stepped onto the stage. Many expected him to announce new leadership. Instead, he called Marcus Reed forward. The same man they removed. The same man they mocked. The CEO handed him a microphone. I made a mistake. The entire crowd listened. I judged someone based on his job title instead of his ability. Marcus stood silently. The CEO continued. This man discovered a flaw our entire engineering department missed. The cameras turned toward Marcus. Thousands of employees watched. The CEO looked at him. We owe you an apology. Marcus looked at the crowd. Then he spoke. I don't want an apology. Everyone looked surprised. Marcus continued. I want people to stop assuming they know someone's value before hearing their story. The room became silent. Because everyone understood. This was bigger than one company. It was about every person who had been ignored. Every worker who had ideas but never got a chance. The company offered Marcus a high-level position, but he asked for something else. He created a new program, a system where every employee, from engineers to drivers, could report problems directly. Because Marcus knew something executives forgot. The people closest to a problem often see the truth first. Years later, the company became stronger than ever, and every new employee heard the same story about the delivery driver who saved a billion-dollar company. The man who didn't have the biggest office. The man who didn't wear the most expensive suit. The man nobody listened to. Until they had no choice. Because sometimes, the person everyone overlooks is the only person paying attention.